Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we really try to cut through the noise and get to the heart of what's truly important.
Yeah, digging deep.
Exactly. And today, well, we're plunging into something that really sent shockwaves through New York City recently.
You mean the mayoral primary? Zohran Mamdani?
Precisely. Zohran Mamdani's stunning victory in the Democratic primary. I mean, this wasn't just a win, right? People are calling it a real David versus Goliath story.
Oh, absolutely. You had this relatively unknown 33-year-old Democratic Socialist
Right.
up against political heavyweights. I mean, think about someone like former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Huge resources, decades of influence. It defied conventional wisdom.
It really did. It left a lot of seasoned political observers kind of reevaluating their playbooks, didn't it?
For sure. When you look at the deep pockets, the entrenched power he was up against, Mamdani's success looks even more remarkable.
So that's what this dump dive is all about, right? Understanding how he managed to pull off such an improbable win. Exactly. We're going to try and dissect his unique vision for New York City, explore the specific platform elements that really resonated, analyze how he connected with voters, often in, pretty unconventional ways.
And then the big question.
Yeah.
Does his approach offer a kind of blueprint for future campaigns, especially in big, diverse cities like New York?
That's the mission. And to do this, we've pulled from a really great range of sources.
Yeah, what do we got?
We've got in-depth political analyses, looking at voter data, campaign strategies, all that.
Okay.
Then there's some candid YouTube interviews with Mamdani himself, where he talks pretty openly about his frustrations, his hopes for the city.
Nice. Direct from the source.
And also some revealing campaign insights, sort of peeling back the layers on how this grassroots movement actually came together.
Okay, so a good mix. Our goal then is to distill those key takeaways, give you a shortcut to understanding a victory that honestly could genuinely reshape urban politics.
And maybe inspire similar movements elsewhere. So let's get into it. Let's do it. Where do we start? The man himself.
Absolutely. I think you have to start there. At the core of Zohran Mamdani's appeal is this really profound personal connection to New York City.
He's not just some outsider.
Not at all. He gets the city's core struggles, especially affordability, because he's lived it. He moved here when he was 7, grew up here, got his citizenship here, even got married here.
So a real New Yorker.
In every sense. He talks about this deep love for the city, but it's a love mixed with real frustration.
Frustration about what specifically?
About what he calls the disconnect between our politics and our place. He sees New York as, the wealthiest city in the world, but fundamentally unaffordable.
Pushing people out.
Exactly. Pushing out the people who built it every day, as he puts it. The essential workers, artists, immigrants, small business owners, the soul of the city.
And that's not just rhetoric for a lot of people, is it? It's their daily reality. Rent, food, opportunities.
It's everything. And that lived experience, that deep frustration, it directly fueled his campaign's core idea. The politics of no translation.
Okay, what does that mean, politics of no translation?
It means skipping the usual political jargon, the complex stuff that often turns people off.
Right.
And speaking directly, clearly, about the crisis that working people were facing, focusing squarely on that universal struggle, affordability.
Because that cuts across everything else, neighborhoods, backgrounds.
Precisely. While other politicians might pivot to ideology or culture wars, Mamdani realized that for most New Yorkers, the number one issue day in and day out is, can I afford my rent? Can I afford food? Childcare, getting around the city.
It's just the basics of living.
Exactly. And that direct, unvarnished, empathetic approach, it really cut through.
So it was the message, but also the messenger, right? His identity played a role.
A huge role, absolutely crucial. He broke major barriers. First South Asian elected official, first Muslim elected official to even run for NYC mayor.
That's significant in a city like New York.
It's massive. It's symbolic. It signals to huge communities that their experiences, their voices are finally being reflected at the top, that they belong there.
And he didn't shy away from it.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
That's what's fascinating. He fully embraced his identity. He's Shia Muslim, right? So he made a real sustained effort to engage directly with Muslim communities.
How so?
Not just token gestures. He did campaign videos in Urdu, reaching people in their own language. He personally visited mosques during Ramadan and Eid, shared meals, listened.
That kind of direct, respectful outreach must have built a lot of trust.
Absolutely. It fostered a real sense of connection for voters who often feel overlooked or just, pandered to during election season.
And wasn't there something about his campaign ads being different, Bollywood-inspired?
Oh, yeah, they became a cultural phenomenon. Really slick videos using dramatic dialogue references from classic Indian films like Diwar
Wow.
and these funny, clever mango lassi metaphors to explain ranked choice voting.
Mango lassi metaphors. How does that even work?
He basically compared choosing your ranked candidates to picking your favorite ingredients for a perfect mango lassi.
Mm-hmm.
The layers, the preferences. It made something potentially confusing feel relatable, even fun.
That's brilliant, making policy accessible.
Exactly. These weren't just ads. They were culturally resonant pieces of content that just exploded in South Asian communities, went totally viral.
And his mother being Miranair, the filmmaker, that must have added something too.
Definitely lent some cultural credibility, sure.
Yeah.
And you could see her influence in the, film-grade quality of his social media. It just looked different, more polished, more engaging than typical political stuff.
But his outreach wasn't just to the South Asian community, right?
No, not at all. He had this real cultural omnivore approach, as the sources call it. Very intentional about connecting with all sorts of groups.
Like what?
Interfaith events were a big part of it. A rally in Brooklyn with Sikh and Jain leaders, Chanukah parties with Jewish organizations, MLK Day interfaith services.
Showing up everywhere.
Showing up and showing genuine appreciation for the city's diversity. It signaled a belief in dialogue, in collective action across different faiths and backgrounds.
And it was the small things too, apparently, like food.
Yeah, exactly. Those little details painted a picture. He'd talk about grabbing an Italian deli sandwich here, Mexican tacos there, hitting the halal carts, even shared his specific bagel order.
Huh. That makes him seem normal, relatable.
Right, like a neighbor, someone who actually lives in and loves the everyday fabric of the city, not some disconnected politician.
Okay, so he's connecting culturally, but he also faced some pretty nasty attacks, right? Racist, Islamophobic stuff.
Oh, absolutely. A barrage from figures like Representative Nancy Mace, actress Deborah Messing, baseless stuff, trying to link him to terrorism, questioning his loyalty.
How did he handle that? That must have been tough.
He confronted it head on. He talked openly about it being the unfortunate reality for many Muslims in public life. But instead of retreating, he doubled down on face-to-face engagement.
Meeting people directly.
Yeah. His belief was that the bigotry represents a small minority, and that shared humanity, direct conversation, could overcome it. Show resilience, build unity.
Okay, so that's the man, the identity, the approach. Let's pivot to why he won, the policies. What was the driving force?
Unquestionably housing. His stance on housing was, as some called it, the jet fuel of his campaign.
Specifically the rent freeze.
Yes.
Right.
His unequivocal backing for a 4-year freeze on rent-stabilized apartments. This wasn't just his idea. It was a core demand from the New York State tenant bloc. And it hit home for so many people.
Because it affects a huge number of New Yorkers directly.
Massive numbers. You're talking about 2.4 million tenants living in about 1 million rent-stabilized units. A 4-year freeze, that could mean savings of $200 to almost $600 a month by 2030, potentially.
That's life-changing money for a lot of families.
Absolutely. The difference between making rent and eviction, affording groceries, medication, saving for college, it tackles the biggest financial pressure point for so many.
And the mayor actually has power over this, right? Through the Rent Guidelines Board.
Exactly. The mayor appoints 8 of the 9 members. So Mamdani would have direct leverage to implement this.
And that's different from the current situation.
Very different. Under de Blasio, the board froze rents 3 times. Under Mayor Adams, rents have gone up significantly, around 9% increases. So Mamdani offered a clear, actionable path to relief, a real contrast.
But what about the criticisms that a rent freeze hurts housing supply, stops construction?
He tackled that directly. He framed the freeze as a common-sense response to a crisis. He argued many rent-stabilized buildings don't need massive new investment, and his broader plans were funded.
Through the tax proposals we'll get to.
Right. Funded, thought-out plans. For him, it's about rebalancing the scales, making sure people aren't priced out of the city they keep running.
And his vision went beyond housing, right? It was about transforming everyday life.
Definitely. A whole suite of public services. Take transit, he proposed, making all NYC buses free.
All of them. How much would that cost?
Estimated around $700 million a year. But it's not just theoretical. It builds on his Fix the MTA Act pilot program from when he was in the Assembly, which made one bus line free in each borough.
So there was a precedent Free buses would be huge for mobility, especially for lower-income New Yorkers.
Immense impact. And then there's universal childcare. Free childcare for kids aged 6 weeks to 5 years.
Wow. That's ambitious. How much?
Estimated $6 billion annually. But importantly, it aligns with the priorities Governor Hochul has mentioned, so there's maybe a path for state collaboration there, despite other disagreements.
Interesting. What else? I heard something about grocery stores.
Yeah, another innovative idea. A pilot program for 5 city-owned municipal grocery stores, 1 per borough, costing about $60 million.
City-owned grocery stores. Why?
His argument is compelling. It costs less than half what the city already plans to spend subsidizing corporate supermarkets. A $140 million subsidy that don't always guarantee lower prices or better worker conditions.
So potentially more efficient and targeted.
Exactly. And he points to successful examples already running in places like Kansas City and Chicago. It shows the model can work to fight food deserts and high prices.
Okay, and there was a minimum wage proposal too.
Yes, a $30 minimum wage. A big step aimed at ensuring a real living wage that reflects NYC's high cost of living, improving standards directly.
So lots of big plans. How does he propose paying for all this? Buses, childcare, grocery stores.
He's very clear, asking the wealthiest to pay a bit more. His plan involves a 2% income tax increase just on the top 1%, those earning over $1 million a year.
Just the top 1%.
Yes. And also matching New York's corporate tax rate to New Jersey's, raising it from 7.25% to 11.5%.
Okay, targeted increases, not across the board.
Right. Designed not to be punitive, but to ensure the most affluent contribute fairly to the city's overall well-being, funding the services everyone relies on.
But isn't that where the flight risk argument comes in? That the rich will just leave if taxes go up? Governor Hochul mentioned this.
That's always the immediate concern, yeah. But Mamdani has a strong counter based on actual data.
What does the data say?
He cites the Fiscal Policy Institute. Their research shows the top 1% actually leave high-tax states at a much lower rate, like 1/4 the rate of other income groups.
Really? That's counterintuitive.
Isn't it? And when they do move, they often go to other high-tax states like California or Massachusetts. It suggests taxes aren't the only or maybe even primary factor.
So what's his argument for why they'd stay?
That an improved quality of life across the whole city, better transit, safer streets, good schools, affordable housing, vibrant communities, actually benefits everyone, including the wealthy. It makes the city more attractive to live and invest in.
A better city for all is better for everyone, basically.
That's the core belief. A thriving, stable city benefits the affluent, too.
He also made that comment about billionaires not having the right to exist, which caused a stir. What was behind that?
Yeah, that definitely grabbed headlines. He clarified it wasn't literal, of course.
Right.
He framed it as a way to talk about stark income inequality.
A rhetorical device.
Exactly. A call for a better distribution of wealth for all, arguing that such extreme wealth concentration often comes at the expense of basic dignity for many. He wants everyone, including billionaires, he said, to enjoy a better quality of life in a more equitable city.
So less about eliminating billionaires, more about rebalancing the system.
Precisely. Challenging the idea that the current level of inequality is acceptable or sustainable. It's about ensuring dignity and basic needs are rights, not luxuries.
Okay, so we have the message, the policies, but how did he win? Against Cuomo, the money, the establishment, the ground game must have been something else.
Oh, it was unprecedented, absolutely central to his victory. This was people power, overcoming corporate cash, as he put it.
Like that huge donation Cuomo got from the apartment association.
Exactly. Cuomo had a $2.5 million super PAC donation from the NY Apartment Association. Mamdani didn't have that kind of money. He had volunteers, an army of them.
How many are we talking?
Get this, over 50,000 people signed up. And more than 30,000 are actively canvassing, knocking on doors, making calls.
30,000 active volunteers. That's incredible.
It's staggering. They knocked on 1.6 million doors.
Yeah.
Had almost 250,000 actual conversations with voters.
Wow. So they reached what percentage of voters?
About a quarter of the total number of people who voted in the primary. Think about that level of direct personal contact. It's almost unheard of in a city this size.
And this wasn't just random volunteering, right? It was organized, like the DSA model.
Precisely. A scaled-up version of the Democratic Socialists of America field operation. They focus on deep canvassing, longer, empathetic conversations, understanding people's real concerns.
Not just reading a script.
Right. Building leadership within the community. His field director, Tasha Van Auken, built this structure with over 400 field leads, empowering local teams. They constantly refine their approach based on feedback.
Learning as they went.
Again, making it responsive, connected to the neighborhoods.
And the tenant block played a big role here too, didn't they?
Absolutely crucial. They collected over 20,300 pledges from tenants promising to vote for candidates backing the rent freeze.
20,300 pledges. How does that compare?
That's nearly 3 times Eric Adams' victory margin in 2021. It just shows the immense, untapped power of the tenant vote, the sleeping giant they talked about.
So people weren't just voting, they felt invested enough to actively volunteer.
Yes, the urgency of the message and the moment, as the sources say, really motivated people. That's usually a hard sell for campaigns, getting people to give their time like that. Here, they felt like they were part of a movement.
Fighting alongside him.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just door knocking, right? Social media was big too.
Huge. They were masters of digital communication, used it strategically to bypass traditional media, counter negative narratives.
With those high-quality videos you mentioned.
Yes, the film-grade stuff, slick editing, humor, pop culture references, self-deprecation. It made the content incredibly engaging and shareable.
Like the Hot Girls and Mamdani thing.
Haha, yeah. That was a playful, self-aware nod to internet trends that just took off.
Right.
Broadened his reach massively.
And the Mango Lassie explanation for ranked choice voting.
Brilliant, right. Taking something complex and making it simple, relatable, even fun. Using a specific cultural touchstone, it turned a potential confusion point into a way to connect.
So all these elements, the message, the ground game, the digital strategy, helps to build a really broad coalition.
Incredibly broad and quite unconventional. He won 58% of the Asian vote compared to Cuomo's 16%. Huge margins.
And strong in immigrant neighborhoods, too.
Dominant. Won Chinatown by 28 points. Bengali blocks in Astoria by 52 points. Just shows a deep resonance there.
What I find really interesting is winning in areas that went for Trump or Adams previously.
That's maybe the most telling part. It suggests a clear economic agenda focused on tangible benefits can actually win people back, regardless of past votes, giving people something to vote for, not just against.
Shifting the narrative.
Exactly. From opposition to a hopeful vision. Showing economic solidarity can bridge other divides.
And younger voters turned out, too.
Big time. Unprecedented numbers. The top 3 age groups were 18-24, 25-29, and 30-34.
Wow. A demographic often seen as disengaged.
Yeah. Clearly they saw something different, something inspiring in Mamdani. Someone actually building the future they're worried about.
It sounds like it came down to real relationships. Neighbors talking to neighbors.
That's what the sources emphasize. Lifetimes of relationships. There are these powerful anecdotes of Fujianese construction worker supporting Mamdani just to afford more time with his daughter.
Turning policy into something deeply personal.
Exactly. Or a Bengali tenant leader in Astoria, a former Trump voter, won over completely by Mamdani's focus on basic material needs, rent, food, things that mattered to his family.
That shows the power of that consistent, empathetic focus on tangible issues.
It really does. Building diverse coalitions by meeting people where they are.
Okay, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were criticisms, challenges. Feasibility was a big one, right? Albany roadblocks.
Definitely. A major point critics raised. Many of his key proposals, tax hikes, some housing stuff needs state legislative approval. The mayor can't just snap their fingers.
And Governor Hochul wasn't exactly on board with raising taxes.
No, she publicly opposed it, citing that flight risk concern again. It's a real structural hurdle. Albany generally controls those big tax decisions.
So how does Mamdani plan to get around that? Or does he?
He seems remarkably confident. He points to his own track record in the Assembly. He helped secure $4 billion extra for schools, despite Cuomo's opposition back then.
Okay, so he has experience navigating Albany.
Yes, and winning battles that seemed impossible. He also got that $500 million in debt relief for taxi drivers passed. His argument is basically, the sheer popularity of his agenda will build the political pressure needed at the state level. Public will can make the impossible possible.
Interesting. What about reactions from specific communities? I heard there were mixed views in the Jewish community.
Yeah, the sources show it was nuanced. Some saw him as a humanist, appreciated his local engagement on shared issues. People like Eli Goldman, Rachel Pastor mentioned.
But others had concerns.
Yes, described as trust deficits, mostly stemming from his pro-Palestinian stances, especially in the context of rising anti-Semitism. Things like not explicitly condemning certain phrases as calls to violence. It's complex.
Did he propose anything to address those fears?
Yes, it's important to note his platform included a commitment to an 800% increase in anti-hate programming, a tangible step aimed at fostering safety and unity.
And he faced those personal attacks too, the racist anti-Muslim ones, even death threats.
Relentlessly.
Yeah.
From people like Nancy Mace, Deborah Messing. Really inflammatory, baseless accusations.
How did he respond strategically?
He called it the unfortunate reality for many Muslims in public life, but refused to be sidelined. He kept engaging directly, face to face, believing that shared humanity could counter the hate, that it represented a small minority. Resilience was key.
There was also that criticism about him being more vibe than substance, right? The vibe war argument.
Yeah, some observers argued his appeal was just about seeming cool or authentic, rather than policy depth or experience. Kind of a superficial take.
How did he push back on that?
By pointing to his concrete legislative record, the taxi debt relief, stopping the frack gas power plant, tangible achievements. He argued that was the kind of experience New Yorkers wanted, fighting for working people, getting results, different from Cuomo's style.
And he framed the campaign itself as proof of leadership.
Exactly. Saying a campaign is a glimpse of how you'd govern, taking it from 2 people to 50,000 volunteers. That shows serious organizational and leadership capacity relevant to running a city.
So how does he define democratic socialist? It's a label that carries a lot of weight.
He links it directly to Bernie Sanders' focus on income inequality, but also, significantly, to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s call for a better distribution of wealth for all.
So less ideology, more philosophy.
More about dignity and shared prosperity. For him, public services, transit, housing, childcare, libraries, sanitation aren't luxuries or negotiable items. They're the fundamental building blocks for a dignified life.
He made that point about the MetroCard fare being out of reach.
Yeah, $2.90 being unaffordable for 1 in 5 New Yorkers. It just highlights the urgency that these aren't abstract issues.
And his core commitment is that every New Yorker belongs, even those paying higher taxes.
That's the vision. He argues that improving the quality of life for everyone ultimately benefits the whole city, attracts and retains talent at all levels. An inclusive city is a stronger, more dynamic city for all.
Beyond the social and economic, he also has a big environmental vision, right? NYC as a sustainability model.
Hugely ambitious, a global model for sustainability through climate-smart initiatives. A climate-smart metropolis.
What does that involve specifically?
Expanding zero-emission public transit, building out EV charging networks, retrofitting buildings for energy efficiency, which is massive for a city like New York.
Greening the city.
Yes. Expanding green spaces, especially in underserved areas. Promoting community-owned renewable energy. Creating equitable green jobs.
And this aligns with bigger goals.
Crucially, yes. His plans align with stricter U.S. federal standards, coming post-2025 carbon neutrality goals, renewable targets. It positions NYC as an international benchmark, a leader for other global cities.
So the big picture question, is this a new playbook for the Democratic Party nationally? People like Bernie Sanders, Michelle Wu seem to think so.
They're definitely pointing to it as a potential blueprint. The argument is the party needs to be for something concrete, not just against Trump or the opposition.
The power of an affirmative vision.
Exactly. His movement campaign showed you can win by focusing on big ideas that actually matter to people's lives, proving organized people can beat organized money.
And showing people are maybe hungry for government to work again.
That seems to be the takeaway. A desire for government that delivers tangible results, not just gridlock and rhetoric. It's a potent alternative model.
So his focus on economic issues, on listening instead of lecturing, it really challenges the old ways.
Fundamentally, it suggests a path forward focused on material needs, authentic organizing, and a positive vision can reshape what's possible, not just in New York, but maybe nationwide. It's a paradigm shift.
So, wrapping up, Zohran Mamdani's victory really feels like more than just an election win. It's this testament, isn't it, to the power of a clear message, focus on people's actual material needs, their dignity.
Absolutely. Combined with that authentic, grassroots organizing that mobilized an incredible number of people, it really throws cold water on the idea that big money is unbeatable in city politics.
His campaign, zeroing in on affordability, housing, public services, it showed New Yorkers aren't just looking for a manager, right? They want someone who gets their struggles.
Someone who shares their experiences, shows up, organizes, and fights for their ability to just live in the city that's increasingly pricing them out.
You know, in a city famous for its wealth, its grandeur, his campaign poses that really basic, provocative question.
Like MLK's question about affording the hamburger.
Exactly. What good is being the greatest city in the world if the people who build it, run it, make it vibrant, simply can't afford to live there?
His rise suggests this deep yearning for leaders who don't just understand that struggle, but who will passionately show up and fight to make dignity, belonging, affordability real for every single New Yorker.
It feels like it's about reshaping what urban governance is even for, not just managing decline, but actively building a city for everyone.
A truly profound shift in perspective.